was
One more
gonna
on
say-
this and then we'll move on to
I
non.
don't know, I won't take you long. You say about that Dollar General there, and I've been talking to my wife here a long time, and I don't have the resources to reach out and contact these people, but CVS drugstore, something like that, and that other land with those little buildings, those old dry cleaners and stuff, that'd be an ideal spot for Jackson, to bring more to Jackson. People
And
come
that area
going
next to
out
that, I
Jackson.
agree with you, I agree with you.
But, you know, they got 3 roads to get in and out, the whole thing would work for Jackson. But you may know how to reach it for something.
I agree with you, that's a good idea.
Wasn't that that's a major in and out part to Jackson, and you'd think you'd want it to look nice for
We're
people
trying to
coming
do
into
that.
the community, you know, instead of having them shudder saying, oh my God, I moved to this place.
I'll give you an idea. You know, that has been an issue, and I don't mean to diverge too much, but Dave brought up the economic development and the entrance to the city. One of the things that council, when I first got here, the former manager and was told me and said, if you do anything when you're here, as you go down in Page Avenue, see that junkyard that now is grass, those are the kind of things that we need to do, and believe me, a lot of people take that as you're assaulting business. Well,
Yeah,
at some
but aren't they
point,
assaulting
that
us?
may have pushed 3 other businesses out. Because I tell the story all the time. My first week here, I had 2 companies that wanted to locate here. They came downtown, they loved it. The minute they got in the neighborhoods and drove some of these streets, they said, my wife won't live here and my employees won't move here in these neighborhoods. And that hurts Jackson. We've got to turn that around.
Oh, right. Right. So let's jump into the non-owner occupied property registry. It's geared towards properties that are non-owner occupied, intended use as rental and residential. We're requiring the property owners to pay a biannual fee, and then we are now enforcing the housing ordinance, which has always been on the books and randomly enforced, and now we're a lot more consistent. Would you agree with that, Brian? Sure.
Very succinct.
So,
I 100% agree with that. I think it's a
the
good
non-owner,
idea.
okay.
Yeah, we own an apartment house, so.
Okay.
And we want to make pretty clear that we have some pretty good landlords in town. But we also have some that don't do the right thing.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, the bad ones aren't sitting here because we got Laura, and I've lived in one of her units, so I know what it was like. You got good landlords too. You got Brian is a very good landlord and you know that because you look back at the history. We do keep records, and you know the amount of violations that people have, or the lack of violation they have. You see people buying houses when they buy them at tax sale. You see that is tied into this. People want to throw this whole demolition program in with the county tax sale and everything else, but really isn't tied together. But you do have people who are investors in this town that are doing the right thing. And I'll give you an example. And I used Brian the other day, but I'll use him right now. He bought 2 properties. He was smart about it. He watched them for almost a year or better, and he ended up getting those at tax sale. He put some, and those are the things that we had done inspections on. One of them, 620 Adams. If you ever go down there, you'll see this house being recited. Really a nice renovation job. This program is working for those people who are willing to pick and choose rather than just go to a tax sale, take anything without looking at it, and they realize it's got $300,000 of repairs to make. So those are the kind of things that we're trying to bring up, and we are starting to notice. We get a lot of complaints, believe me, about enforcing rental stuff, but keep in mind that a lot of the codes existed prior. You always had to enforce building code. You always had to enforce electrical code, but a lot of times when you have one housing inspector and then one building inspector, one electrical inspector, and one plumbing inspector, in most communities for an Act 54 certified inspector, a community this size has 3 each of a building inspector. We have people working 60 hours a week getting paid for 40 and trying to work Saturdays and Sundays to try to keep up, to try to accommodate. We're seeing an uptick in business as well. But with the non-owner occupied registry, we want to make sure that we're trying to both make units safe for tenants. But, you know, a lot of these landlords, we have 6 landlords, by the way, that are getting a refund this week because they had no violations and inspections. Were you one of them? Or you have a question? Yeah, but I'm sorry. But seriously, I don't
I
know.
want to be one of them.
Yeah, but they have no violation, so they'll get a check back, and we try to incentivize that, and we're seeing that quite a bit. So we're doing our best to clean up these properties, and you're right, we're getting some pushback. You see it on them live, you see us get ripped apart all the time, but there's not an inspector, including myself, goes out there and says, I'm trying to push out landlords. You hear this stuff, and I'll tell you really quickly, we hear this whole issue about You know, we got about roughly 7,200 rental units in town. That's about 53% non-owner occupied. It's huge. And I've told people when I first did the overall economic development stabilization program, and by the way, the garbage is the last of the 8 prongs to be done so that can be implemented. But I made it very clear that it's 30% is about average in a community. The state considers 22% to 25% to be, for non-owner occupied, to be a healthy community. That doesn't mean that you should get down to that point, because Jackson's a little different community. It's more diverse. So at some point, somehow I was talking to a landlord the other day who was asking for a variance of the Building Board of Appeals today, and he said to me, and I get along with him, and he says, well, I've been told that you guys are trying to get down to 2,000 rental units. I said, no, we're not, and nobody ever said that. What we said is that, and this is what I told Jayla at the Jackson Area Landlord Association meeting, if we eliminated, of the 7,200, if we eliminated just the vacant rental units, we would drop our percentage non-owner occupied to about 34%. Just the vacant ones, not ones that people are trying to fix. We're talking the ones that have been abandoned. If we eliminate those, which by the way are about 2,000, so somebody's got this flipped around. We weren't trying to eliminate down to 2,000. We are likely going to eliminate 2,000. We've eliminated 548 rental units in this town. We haven't taken down a rental unit that was rented or that somebody was living in. It just hasn't happened. See you, John. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. And I got to tell you, and I've talked to some landlords today, and Brian may not agree or not, but I got to tell you, the landlords are doing the right thing, don't have problems keeping tenants. They just don't. And if you're slipping through tenants, you ought to start looking at your business model. Something's not working.
And the newsletter you're getting has some statistics about our non-owner occupied property.
Well, we have
Did you-
82% compliance on the first go-around for registering properties.
Well, obviously, you know, the 6 inspectors or 9, or I don't know how many you hired, except for both things.
6.
There are 6 different opinions on what's wrong with a house. Some of them are getting so nitpicky, it's ridiculous. Other ones are just walking through it and say, oh, you're okay, and that's it. So maybe people that got rebates got a, oh, you're okay, and that's it. And maybe the same inspector be gone through my house, I would have 1 page or a half a page of violations and not 3.5 pages. Which one of the stupidest ones was, you need an upstairs screen in your bedroom window. He was with my handyman, the air conditioner sitting on the floor, brand new windows, they're closed. He saw the screen in the basement, but he decided to put that down as a violation.
When was your last inspection?
It was just 60 days ago.
Okay, who did your inspection?
I'm not sure who he was, if I have it on here.
I've seen it.
But I'm just saying, and they're easy fixes. It's not the issue. The issue is it's so friggin' petty to go after this thing. You know, a little while ago you talked about the snow streets and so on, and how you're gonna take it into advisement, you're gonna listen to people's concerns. A street that's 23 feet, you're gonna, you know, make them have to park on one side. People that have a nicer house or a bigger street, that's not gonna be a problem. Well, you got nicer houses, but they're being picked on like they're a 5, 6, 7 slum unit in a bad part of town. So you're not being fair in a lot of reasons like that.
The code, the renovated code, and I would be the first to admit, and so would my inspectors, tell you that depending on who went out, and they weren't exactly trained in everything, like you had an Act 54 inspector, which is a building inspector, he would normally be more picky because he's meant to enforce building code. And then he has to look at the housing code, which is much less strict, and he has to enforce that too. Then you'll find a housing inspector that's not Act 54 certified. He'll look at something different. We've standardized that ordinance now. If you go through that ordinance now, and you'll find there's an interpretive document. I purposely sat down inspectors and sequestered them, not to be confused with the federal sequestering, but they weren't allowed to leave that room. And we sat down and went through that ordinance and rewrote it. And we asked questions. We went through what-if scenarios with every inspector. What if this happened? What have you seen? Have you had any problem with this? A lot of things have been changed. Then the interpretive ordinance has went through track changes to say, what does this mean? So when you're an inspector out there and you have a question on this section, there's something that all the inspectors, all the administration agreed that that's what that enforcement meant. So they didn't have that. Now, we are doing that again at the end of April. We just set up the meeting today. We're going to spend 2 days, it's Friday and a Saturday, sitting down going through the housing code again, because we're seeing things that don't make sense. Not that what wasn't enforced, but we've actually gone to the state and say, why do you want us to enforce something when it's inconsistent in your own state law? Because 95% of what we enforce, those housing inspectors enforce, are state law. We don't have a choice. And I tell my inspectors, don't ever put yourself in the position where somebody gets hurt and you lose everything because you didn't catch something or you turned your head on something when you shouldn't have. We can't do that.
So skeleton doors, they don't even have a key in them, have to be disabled and filled in.
That's a state law. It's
These
fire
are
code.
houses.
Because what, okay, look at it this way. It's the same thing. A skeleton, unless you can somehow weld the skeleton key in, where a child get locked behind that door, that's
They
a,
can be
it's a
locked
state
behind
fire
the door.
code.
You
And
can
it's,
jam a chair against the door now, they can be locked in that door. You can't have chairs in your house? I know, it's just.
we have to enforce state law. But let's carry it to its logical conclusion. Let's say that a child goes, that's why we don't have deadbolts on a bathroom door, or like if somebody wants to lock their kid. We see that. We'll see bedroom doors, and people will put locks on their kids' doors. So you can't do that. What happens if you lose that key, and then you're going to try to figure out a way to hatch it through there to save your child? That's just not going to happen. That's something the city of Jackson will never back off on. When it comes to safety of somebody who's living in that unit, when it comes to fire safety, that's something that our fire department would hammer us on. They are 100% behind that. So the whole key issue was, we don't want to, there are apparatuses that people can buy to make sure they don't destroy the historical character of that door. A lot of people don't want to spend the $36 for the package that does it. I understand that, especially if you've got lots of units. Can't find them, but there are companies that make them. We found some, and we can get you that. But we're trying our best to make sure we're accommodating people, and that's what we're trying to do. I'll give you an example of something that just changed this week in the interpretive document. In our housing code, it said that you had to have a ground fault interrupted plug in a laundry room. All right, but in the state law, in the state code, it says that you have to have it in the laundry room if there is a sink. So we've now changed the interpretation, and the inspectors were told just yesterday, do not enforce a ground fault plug inside a laundry room if there's not a tub sink. Because the circuit you have for the appliance is at the panel interrupted. Anyway, there's no reason to duplicate. So we're constantly reviewing those things based on comments we get. And I can tell you, it's easier from the inside. We have a group that we meet with landlords and property managers that we meet probably now once every month and a half.
Every 2 months.
Every 2 months, and we're going to try to do it more. And I meet with some individually, and they'll come up with these issues, and we try to work through them and try to make sure that we're accommodating. Some we can't because they're health, safety, and welfare issues. But some, like this one, wow, nobody really noticed that was the difference. No matter how many sets of eyes you have on something, you can always re-review it and find something you can change.
I did have one question though. It's regarding the 22 months after you get your certification letter that you're okay to go. Within 22 months, you have to sign up for that house. You have to re-register your house. If you're later than 22 months, although you pay for 24 months of registration, if you're later than that 22 months, they're going to assess a fee on there. You have to do your own paperwork. And I just have 2 houses, and if you guys want to buy them, I'll get out of the landlord business, I don't care.
I was a landlord, I don't want to do it again.
Okay, exactly. But my thing is, you don't even send out a notice. We have to be our own notice people. You renew your license plates every year, the same time, but you get a friggin' notice from the state of Michigan or whoever to renew your license to remind you. You got landlords that have 20 units, 30 units. They got to keep track of all these dates. Maybe they're a 4-unit duplex. One got inspected and they have 30 more days on the other one, and maybe they got an extension on the other one. So one unit, they have 3 different days that they have to 22 months or they'll get a late fee. They got to renew that license and stuff. That's
You're right.
crazy.
But
Without a notice, that's crazy. All
But
this
you-
money you're getting, you should be able to send a notice, okay, it's time to renew your license.
But you know why the state does that, right?
Pardon
They
me?
don't do it to be kind and make sure you're aware of it. They do it
For fees.
for fees.
Oh, yeah.
They do it so, here's the credit
Well,
card
you're gonna get a
statement, here's
fee
how you
like
pay the
that.
fee.
Yeah.
It isn't because they're being kind to you. They're doing it and saying
Well,
we're
you're
trying
getting
to.
a fee too, though. This 22-month notification, I'm gonna come give you another $40.
Eventually, we may do
$50.
that, but we haven't got up to eventually the city will get to a point if somebody wants to pay with a debit card or credit card online, we'll be doing that. But we're not to that point yet. A lot of people think that City of Jackson, we heard, oh, you have all this information at your fingertips. We really don't. We operated in silos. Many of you knew that the city was operating kind of dysfunctionally in these silos. And departments would fight and they wouldn't share information. And that's changing. It's changing. We got to start operating like a business, and that's what we're trying to do. And we have work groups that are working together and sharing ideas to try to accommodate what you're suggesting. We need to do those kind of things.
Go ahead and then Carol.
The
key thing was new for me too. I didn't know about that, but one thing I did was just take the whole old door off and put it in a safe place so that it doesn't get ruined or altered, and put the cheap $30 door on there while it's a rental, and then if it gets destroyed, whatever, it was a garbage door anyways, and if I ever wanted to sell the house, I can put the nice real door back on there. I agree with you on the notice. If you're working as a business, then send us a notice. We can't remember all this stuff.
That's a good idea. I mean, it's something we have considered already, and you're not the first people to say
The fees are already
that.
super increased, so why would we wanna pay a late fee on top of this insane amount of $175 for everything? We don't want the late fees either.
You're saying 175, that's an inspection. She was talking about the registration.
Well, either way, it's a lot of
Yeah.
money. And I wanna say one more thing, I don't understand why you think that, like, you're only giving us 3 months to fix a house, and just like the landlords that have 20 units, I mean, things break. We can't just help, notice it instantly and fix it. So, like, I had 4 inspected within 2 months, and there was no way I was fixing everything in 3 months on 4 houses. And then if I don't finish it in 3 months, I have to pay another $100, and I just think that you shouldn't have to pay another $100 because we didn't make it in your time limit when this was all, like, spurred on us so fast anyways. So, and we have to go to a budget council meeting to get our $100 waived? Really? Like, we need budget counseling? I don't really understand that.
Budget council?
No,
whatever,
you're
it's-
misunderstanding something. You're, the administrative hearings board,
Yeah, if you,
that's what you're talking about.
if you want your $100 waived, you have to go to,
It's an administrative, quasi judicial court, but
It's not a counseling thing.
no, I know, but I couldn't remember what it was called.
Okay.
but remember that we're trying our hardest to make sure we're accommodating people, but, we don't represent just landlords, we represent single-family taxpayers here. And the issue is we've had landlords come to us and say, oh my gosh, you're charging me this ridiculous amount of money, and I own 80 units. You should spread this out once a month. I mean, how long it would take, how many years it would be to inspect somebody if you did it once a month if they had 80 units? That's part of doing business. You got that many units, at some point, if we get to a point where we've started to clean a lot of this stuff up and we're seeing this kind of stuff revolve around, is that I'd be willing to take counsel, certainly, is to go to a longer period. But right now, we've got a real problem. We got to get after it quickly. And while we know people end up getting hurt that weren't intending to do these things, a lot of the stuff, we changed the fees, and they're substantial. They went $50, but before it was, if you had a multifamily building, a huge building, like Abbey Villas, they got a huge discount. If you went to the property, it was $125, and it was $10 a unit after that. Even though it cost the city thousands more dollars to do those inspections at a total, we were losing money hand over fist. And guess who was paying that? Everybody else in town was paying it.
I live in town too.
Yeah, you're paying it. So
I live here, I
that's
like it here.
that's our point, and we're trying to make it nicer to live here, and that means stabilizing rents, values, and single family.